Ron Stotts has lived leadership when the stakes were real, immediate, and unforgiving. Long before coaching executives and founders, Ron learned about trust, pressure, and accountability in environments where mistakes were not theoretical. They were personal. His early career forged a deep understanding of what it means to lead when uncertainty is constant and clarity is earned, not given. What makes Ron's work resonate today is how seamlessly he bridges two worlds most people keep separate: the intensity of elite performance and the humanity required to sustain it. He has advised CEOs, founders, and senior leaders who look successful on paper but privately struggle with decision fatigue, isolation, and the weight of responsibility. Ron does not teach motivation. He teaches ownership. His philosophy centers on personal agency, disciplined thinking, and the courage to confront blind spots before they become liabilities. He challenges high performers to stop outsourcing their sense of control and start leading themselves with the same rigor they expect from others. His journey is not about becoming fearless. It's about acting with intention while fear is present. For leaders navigating complexity, growth, and internal conflict, Ron brings a grounded voice shaped by experience, reflection, and a deep respect for what leadership actually demands over time. And before we start the episode, a quick word from our sponsor, Deep Wealth and the Deep Wealth Mastery Program. Here's Bill, a graduate, who says the Deep Wealth Mastery Program has transformed the KPIs we're using to accelerate growth and profits. Or how about Emery, who says, and I love this, and I quote, the Deep Wealth Mastery Program helped me create the right mindset for both growing my business and later my future exit. I now know what questions to ask, what to do and not to do, which is priceless. The team and I have found dangerous skeletons and gaps that we're now addressing due to the Deep Wealth Program. Today, our actions have a massive ROI. Absolutely love that. And now, speaking of growth and adding value, check out what Bruce says. And I quote, as a business owner, I'm always looking for new programs, systems, CEO peer groups, and strategies to improve my business. Hands down, the Deep Wealth Mastery Program is the absolute best. I'm both growing my business and preparing for a future exit at the same time. It doesn't get any better. And I got to tell you, as I hear these testimonials, this is exactly why I do what I do. My mission, the team's mission here at Deep Wealth, is to literally change the social fabric of society, one business owner at a time and one liquidity event at a time. The Deep Wealth Mastery Program is the only one based on a 9-figure deal. And that deal, that was my deal. You know my story. I said no to a 7-figure offer. I created a system that we now call Deep Wealth Mastery, and that's exactly what helped myself and my business partners welcome from a different buyer, a different offer, a 9-figure deal. So if you're interested in growing your profits, preparing for a future liquidity event, whether that's 3 years away or 33 years away, and if you want to optimize your post-exit life, Deep Wealth Mastery is for you. Please email success@deepwealth.com. Again, that's success, SUCCESS, at deepwealth.com. We'll send you all the information about the Deep Wealth Mastery Program, otherwise known as the Scale for Ultimate Sales System. Better yet, why not hop on a complimentary strategy call? We'll see where you are at your business and what's standing between you and your financial independence and your dreams. So that's where you want to be. You want to be with other successful business owners, entrepreneurs, and founders just like you who are looking to create market disruptions. Whether you're a startup, whether you've been in business for 3 or 4 decades, whether you're manufacturing, whether you're high-tech, SaaS, low-tech, whatever the case may be, come on in and network with other business owners, with other businesses just like you, because they all want to lock in their financial freedom and enjoy both success and fulfillment. Again, the 90-day Deep Wealth Mastery Program, it has your name on it. All you need to do is take the next step. Please send an email to success@deepwealth.com. Deep Wealth Nation, welcome to another episode of the Deep Wealth Podcast. Deep Wealth Nation, when it comes to your future, to your legacy, whether you're planning on growing your profits today, keeping the company forever, even growing your profits today and in the very near term, looking to have some kind of liquidity event, how is your leadership? How are you, the team? If it's just you, well, we got to have another conversation. If it's you and the team, what that's looking like. if an investor or buyer at Deep Wealth Nation were to come in and they were to put you under the microscope, what would they be saying? Because here at Deep Wealth, our saying is, show us your leadership team and we'll tell you your future. And I know all kinds of questions are for you. We have a very special guest in the house of Deep Wealth. You heard the official introduction. Ron, welcome to the Deep Wealth Podcast. It's truly a pleasure to have you with us. And you have quite the story. There's always a story behind the story. What is your story? What got you from where you were to where you are today?
Yeah, thanks for having me on the program, Jeffrey. I appreciate it. I got out of the Marine Corps. I say that as if I did it gracefully. I stumbled out in a total mess, suicidal and manic depressive and everything else. It was a really terrible experience for me, but it also was the best experience I could have had because it really forced me to, if I was going to thrive in the world, forced me to become more aware of who I was and what I wanted and what I was capable of. And so I really went on that inner journey back in the day. And that inner journey took me into a great deal of clarity, a lot of self-acceptance and self-awareness, and the ability to understand myself as I moved through the world. And that's really turned out to be the most amazing gift I could have given myself, because as your mind gets quieter, you neurologically rewire your brain in ways that allows you to access higher levels of thinking. You just work with a bigger picture perspective. And then it's a matter of, well, okay, do I become a spiritual guru, or do I really focus on living and working in the world and making this a better place? And that latter is the way I chose. And I find leaders are really the ones that can really have the most significant impact on societies, since I have the ability to help leaders transform their lives and become capable of moving into high level leadership. So that's the way I've gone, and so far so good.
Well, firstly, Ron, a heartfelt thank you for your time in the service, doing what you did, allowed us to do what we do. So thank you for that sacrifice. Very much appreciated with that. And Deep Wealth Nation, a few things, please go to the show notes. There's a whole number of resources there for you. One of the links is going to take you to Ron's books. Yes, he's a very accomplished author. And in particular, you can start with Overscheduled by Success, a guide for influential leaders too busy to create their next dream. And it'll help lay the foundation for what's ahead for you. And Ron, I'm curious. We'll talk about the book in just a moment. Very high level. I'm going to ask an unfair question because it's too general of a question. And I know that going into it. But that said, when you're working with leaders, is there a certain pattern that you're seeing? Is it the good old Pareto's law, the 80-20 principle? Yes, Jeffrey, 80% of leaders that I work with have challenges with the same 20% of these issues here. And these issues are A, B, C, and D. Are you seeing any patterns like that that you can share?
Yeah, across the board, what I watch is they're very bright people. They're very capable people. And when, as a child, they were very smart and they got rewarded for being smart. And so they really developed that part of themselves. And that got them into the right schools, that got them in the right companies, the right jobs, positions. And they felt like they had it made. And what happens is they've progressed in their success and they get to a place where all of a sudden that's not enough. And they overemphasize trying harder. They overemphasize looking outside of themselves at what the issues are and looking for the solutions outside of themselves. And that's when they come to me, because they get frustrated, they get frightened, they get uncertain. That glass ceiling seems to be not something they're capable of moving through. And lo and behold, what we always find is that within a few questions after I hear their story, it turns out that it's not an outer problem, it's an inner challenge and an inner opportunity. And for me, that inner opportunity is nothing but an indicator that they're ready to evolve and grow. It's not like they've done something wrong and now they're failing. They've done the best they could with what they were accessing from themselves, and now they need more. And so I'm going to support them and guide them on that journey of accessing that more from within themselves. And so, yeah, basically simplified, I could say they're stuck in their left brain with a full-time editorial staff about determining what they think about and what they say, and that allows them to feel like they're in control. And I very gently and supportively point out that that actually puts them completely out of control, because they're not accessing higher levels of thinking, they're not present, they're not breathing.
And Deep Health Nation, as we're talking about this, you may be saying to yourself, okay, Ron, Jeffrey, sure, I hear both of you. You seem like terrific individuals. Come on. What does this have to do with my profit and loss? And the short answer, Deep Health Nation, is everything. Offline, Ron was sharing with me how prospective investors or buyers will bring Ron on board to meet the founders of the companies that they're thinking of either investing in or having some kind of a purchase for a liquidity event and exit. So again, Deep Health Nation, it goes back to that question. If you're under the microscope, maybe you're speaking with Ron now because a prospective investor brought him on board. Hey, I want you to speak with Jeffrey. We're thinking about buying his company or investing in his company, but we really want to know beyond the profit and loss statement, beyond the balance sheet, what are we getting in reality? You might find yourself speaking to Ron. So this is all incredibly pertinent when it does come to mindset. And speaking of mindset, Ron, when it came to your book, Overscheduled by Success, I was very pleasantly surprised. I may be off with the chapter number. It was maybe chapter 5 or 6. It was, I think, step 2. You can call me out on this. It was the power of the breath. And I had to stop myself and say, wait a minute, this is a leadership book and Ron's a smart guy. The power of the breath, what's he talking about? And I know all about breathing and meditation and mindfulness and everything else. But when I saw that actually in the book, I was like, wow, I absolutely love this. So for Deep Health Nation they haven't had the privilege yet of going through the book, Overscheduled by Success, what would you want us to know about step 2, the power of breath? What's going on there?
Breath is really what gives us life. We know that. It's the first thing we do as a child. We take that first breath and then everything's fine. And of course, end of the road, we take our last breath and move on. And it's in between, really, the more fully and deeply we can breathe, the healthier and more conscious we'll be. A child wants love and acceptance more than anything else. And so as a child, they take a look around and go, well, who do I need to be to maximize that love? And all the parts that don't feel acceptable, maybe particular emotions or particular ways of thinking or particular ways of being initially in their family, they kind of stuff those down. They stuff those emotions into that inner cave that we talk about. And they develop those outer tendencies. They develop their intelligence, that left brain ability, and they act a certain way. They squelch certain emotions and allow themselves to express others. And so it's really a matter of when somebody hits that glass ceiling, they need to access more of who and what they are. And ironically, the parts that they hid away and stuffed into that inner cave are the parts that they now need to access so they can become more self-accepting, more a whole person. And in that wholeness, you find your confidence. In that wholeness, you find your authenticity. In that wholeness, you find levels of thinking, quite literally, because the subconscious isn't rambling around and sabotaging your life. You find levels of thinking that allow you to be more present and capable of being a high-level conscious leader who is really working with ease rather than struggle, which is often the case when they come to me. They're exhausted or burned out from pushing and struggling and efforting. And by the time they leave, not only are their personal and professional relationships greatly enhanced, but the ease that they go through life, the comfort that they access solutions and gain ideas and insights into how they can move their business into more productive directions is just very, very easy for them to work with.
And Ron, in the book, what I really enjoyed reading about and couldn't agree more, chapter 3, you talk about, okay, what you're calling challenges or what some people call problems, and I'm right here with you, they're actually opportunities in disguise. And I know for myself, looking back, some of the biggest so-called problems, and I'm using air quotes around problems or challenges, did become my biggest opportunities. And if I'm not mistaken, it was in your preface that you said, life is interesting. Are you living it like the movie Groundhog Day with Bill Murray, where it's in the movie, he wakes up, it's always the same day. But taking that now to our lives, how many times as leaders, it's perhaps not exactly the same situation, but it is the same situation, just a different day. How are we responding? Deep Health Nation, are you responding the same way that you did yesterday and the day before, and really your life is Groundhog Day? Or are you taking some time out, and maybe it's the power of breath or the kind of mindfulness or being in the present moment that Ron is all about of, hey, yeah, I remember this. I'm not going to do what I did last time. Let me approach it from a different perspective. Ron, that's easier said than done with your wisdom, with your insight, with your years of practice.
It is easier said than done if you haven't taken the time to become more self-aware, if you haven't become more emotionally intelligent, if you haven't taken the time to recognize, I mean, all the things that we did to protect ourselves as a child were great. I mean, I really am totally impressed what an infant and a young child does to protect themselves. It's always perfect.
Mhm.
But the problem is we get attached to those ways of being, those perspectives of life. And later in life, what protected us as a child becomes exactly what sabotages us. And so we're only aware of about 5 or 10% of our thoughts. And so what's the other 90% doing? That's all that subconscious stuff. That's all the stuff we weren't willing to look at. And so if you haven't learned to breathe and really look deeper within yourself and become more self-aware, you haven't shifted, you haven't become aware of what's in that subconscious package so that you can become conscious of it. And as you become conscious of it, of course, you can heal it and move forward with it. I mean, I see literally in life, everything that comes into my life is an opportunity. Everything. If I'm feeling an emotion that I might have pushed away when I was a young man, I'll now get curious about it and breathe into it and see what's going on within myself or in my environment so that I can really gather information and see what my best next step is so that I can move forward in life. I don't see anybody ever doing anything wrong. It's just all of these things that come into our life, all of those challenges, all those things that people see as problems are really what's next for you to, that's going to serve and support you to grow. And so, whether it's an emotion or an outer challenge or whatever it is, that's your opportunity. That's the gift that you're being given. That if you can handle that, then you're going to access the part of yourself you need to continue to evolve and grow and become better at what you do.
And so let's talk about that because I know you have a number of different training programs that you offer, and I'm fascinated with them all. But at the very beginning, you start with breath, and your program is Breathing into Success. And Ron, at least in my experience, breathing, the breath, and sleep are the two most underrated superpowers that we have. Forget
Yeah.
entrepreneurs or founders as people. And it's just a given. Most people think, oh, yeah, I know how to breathe or I know how to sleep. And well, actually, Jeffrey, you don't. And you're not doing it properly. And you don't know what you're missing because you don't know what you don't know. So let's start with breath.
Yeah.
What is proper breathing? How do I get the most out of life, out of my business, on the personal side with the right kind of breathing? What does that look like?
Well, look at why you don't breathe. It's interesting for me, even on a discovery call, let alone when I'm starting to work with somebody, I recognize they're just not breathing most of the time. Anytime an emotional challenge comes up, anytime something they're uncomfortable with comes up, anytime they have to think about something and reframe something so they feel more in control, they stop breathing. And the irony of that is I've worked with enough people and asked them, everybody wants to be in control of their life. That makes sense. When I ask them what they do to be in control, they recognize, okay, well, I stop breathing, I go open my left brain, I calculate and edit and figure out what the perfect thing to say is or next step is to take. And I said, okay, so from my perspective, you were just putting yourself out of control. So, in other words, the definition of being in control, from my perspective, is one of being out of control. Because if I'm not breathing, I'm literally shutting down my nervous system, or at least significant parts of it. I'm cutting off my ability to access higher levels of thinking. I'm putting my mind, giving my mind, my subconscious thoughts are going to just take over and sabotage whatever I'm doing within the moment or within a few weeks. And so what I share with them is they learn to breathe. Then whatever comes up, they can be curious about it and see what needs to be handled. But that also gives them access to higher levels of thinking so that they can find solutions that are optimally going to resolve any issues that are coming up. So you want to be able to breathe so that you're really more connected to yourself, so that you're more literally more conscious, more aware of what you're thinking and feeling. So you're not reacting, you're responding to what's coming into your life. And for me, neurologically rewiring the brain is what we need to do to become capable leaders. because we don't want to be having our amygdala sabotaging, it's the emotional center sabotaging everything that we want to do. When I was working, I was executive VP for Intergame Corporation. I was helping AT&T through their divestiture back in the 80s. We were developing all these amazing programs because they were going from a monopoly to 5 for-profit organizations, businesses. And so we were helping them prepare their people to go into that new arena. And, the one thing that became very clear that anybody in a management position on up knew that you don't stick your neck out. You don't come up with ideas. You don't think outside the box because you'll only be criticized. And if you fail, that'll be your story for the next 20 years until you retire. I was having dinner. I'd been working with him for about a year. I'd been traveling all over the U.S., working with all different levels of leaders and managers, that kind of thing. I was sitting with the top 3 folks, guys from AT&T, and we were having dinner, and I don't drink much, and I'd had a drink, and so maybe I was a little looser than I should have been. But they said, well, so Ron, what are you noticing? And I said, well, the truth of it is you 3 are dad, and the managers are mom, and everybody else is the kids. And mom and the kids are just scared to death of you. And so if you're going to put them in a position of leadership or give them options to think, they're not going to be able to do it. So all of what we're doing, unless you implement this huge transformation, if you will, it's not going to work. It's going to fail. And they were quite taken back by that because they saw that their leadership was old style, 50s developed mentality of leadership of micromanaging, over controlling, their ego spewing throughout the organization. And unfortunately, even though they understood that fully, they watered everything down so fully because they wanted to still be in control or have that sense of that I could tell it wasn't going to work. And that's when I left that position and opened up my own organization. There's a fellow I worked with about 5 or 6 years ago. He's got 5 9-figure businesses at the time, international businesses. And he had been referred to me by the love of his life. I'd worked with her, extraordinarily successful entrepreneur, and was going to leave him. And he kind of called me just a bull of a guy. He's like no touchy-feely at all. And he called me, and I live up on an island in Washington, and he rented a place for a couple months up here because he really wanted to jump in full force. And so I remember he just was very hesitant. He just didn't understand any of what I was doing or trying to get him to do, or breathing what, being present what. And it was interesting to watch him within a month really fall in love with himself. He became more aware of himself. He saw his old patterns. He saw how they were sabotaging not only his individual, personal relationships with his love of his life, but with his 2 adult sons who were now drifting away from him. But he also saw that, those traits I'm losing really high quality people in my 5 organizations all the time because of that. Because he was a controlling kind of guy. It was always top-down management style. And within a month, I watched him literally restructure his organizations, or begin to. I watched him really coming from an entirely different place, because as he became more self-accepting and comfortable with himself, that relationship with himself was mirrored in his relationship with others. He started sending me some of his C-suites that he wanted to be CEOs of his organizations. And literally within a year, he had doubled the value of 3 of those organizations. I still work with him from time to time, and he flew me down to the Bay Area, and I was helping him for a few days in a massive transition that he's going through. I mean, I have no idea what the value of his organizations are now. It'd be hugely different than it was back then. But it's really a matter of him, as well as he's doing. The love of his life came back. He's married. His 2 sons are working with him. He's got these fellows or people that he sent to me, and now they're running the companies. He's got all these wonderful ideas. But what's happening is he is getting to an elevated state where all he really needs to do when he's going through one of these huge transitions where he's launching something internationally is recognize that he's okay. You know, and it was really 3 days of helping him to trust that what he had created was going to work. Trust that the people that he was working with, that he had really developed their leadership skills, that they could handle what was coming up. Trusting that he was able to go through this transition without falling back into old controlled ways. And as he did that, it was so interesting. A couple of weeks later, after he had really launched these new programs and everything, it was just like he had literally shifted himself into a higher state of awareness, which all just means that he's able to access higher levels of thinking, so that everything even becomes easier, less effortful, which is his norm. And so I'm watching this guy just not only double, triple, quadruple the value of his organizations, but everybody in the organizations is now much more cooperative and collaborative. And so the values of the organizations have gone up considerably.
Absolutely. And so as you're going through that, let's take a step back for just a moment because it's being present, it's going within. And I liked what you said earlier. It can be effortless. It doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be a grind. Even saying those words tires me out.
Yeah.
So that said, how are we breathing? What do you recommend in terms of the breath pattern that we optimally are breathing and getting it all? Maybe it's coherent breathing or other kinds of techniques. What is that like? What's the secret sauce here for breathing properly to get the most out
Well,
of
not
life?
sure there is a secret. That's the misnomer there. But the secret sauce is to heal what's keeping you from breathing
Mhm.
so that you naturally breathe. I mean, that's the one thing this body of ours does better than and more comfortably than anything is it breathes. It can breathe. And so it's a matter of, well, what's keeping you from breathing? And whatever is keeping you from breathing is the next thing that you need to heal, the next thing you need to explore, the next thing you need to take a look at and heal so that you can become more of who and what you are. But I mean, I teach a lot of different breathing styles and everything, but basically, if I can just get somebody so they're breathing fully and deeply on a regular basis, which the body knows how to do incredibly well, then that's a win. Because when you're breathing, you're communicating to your body you're not in fight or flight. So your nervous system's capable of taking care of you. When you're breathing and you're not in fight or flight, all of a sudden you're literally chemically gates are opening so that you can access higher levels of consciousness. The left brain, that logical part that they've already developed the skills in, are certainly still available, but the right brain, that bigger picture, emotionally aware, spontaneous capabilities of the right brain come into play. And so not only do you see a much bigger picture of what's going on in your life and in any given circumstance, you've got that left brain coming in with the optimal path to the success that you're looking for. That forebrain, the frontal cortex, begins to, in that quieter brain, develop, and that becomes your conscious CEO. So all of a sudden, you're literally reaching levels of thought that you just wouldn't have had. You're seeing opportunity rather than challenge. So your life is completely changed, literally within a year. A couple of months gives you the foundation, but the rest of the year, just neurologically, the rewiring system is taking place.
Okay. And it's interesting because as babies, you're right, there's no training. As babies, we know how to breathe. And if we look at a baby breathe, it's that deep belly breathing, it's the full breath. Yet as adults, we somehow lose that along the way. It seems as though we quote unquote forget how to breathe and we have to retrain ourselves to get back to those deep breaths, to be in that moment, to take it all fully in with that. And what's amazing with what you're sharing with us, and Ronnie, you can say, Jeffrey, on base or off base, being present, having that mindfulness, dealing with those issues that perhaps, if I can use the word scary, feel scary to me. They are keeping me literally up at night. So when we're dealing with that, we can get back to basics, get back to, okay, I feel safe, I feel good. Let me take my God-given gifts to the world and really make a difference out there. That in the case of this one client that you're sharing with us, it was, I'm going to use the word overnight. It really wasn't overnight, but in a very short period of time, it was a tremendous difference for the better.
And I see it every time. I mean, the breathing is a matter of the reason you're holding your breath so often is because you're trying to control what you're thinking. You're trying to control what you're feeling. It's all just mixed in there. And so once you heal what you're trying to control, then you don't have to control those things anymore. You can be present, you can be curious, you can just be yourself. Back in the day, I remember 50s, 60s, and back then, you top-down leadership was the way to go because you could reach a certain level of success. You could make a lot of money. But the problem was the cost was in your life, your personal life, and your relationships with others in both your personal and professional life. And you had a organization where people weren't happy. You were pushing and forcing, and just not a good way for anybody to live, including the leadership. And so nowadays, with the rapid change and increased complexity of the work area, the business field, you can't do that. You'll get burned out. You have to heal what's keeping you up in that left brain so that you can access all of who you are, so that you can really become that leader who's conscious enough to guide a business into the levels of success it's capable of. And back to the basics of your business value reflects your leadership capacity. An external strategy builds growth, but internal evolution really builds sellability and developmental ability.
And so talk to us about that for the founder who is saying, okay, you know what? It is time for me to move on to the next chapter of my life. That may be bringing in an investor or having a full-on exit. When you're working with the buy side of the equation here, okay, Ron, I want you to come on in, take a look at this company and see what Jeffrey is doing and what's happening over here and there. What are the buyers really looking for? What's the investor looking for? What are the red flags that they don't want to see, that they're hoping you're not coming back and saying, okay, here's what I'm seeing, you're probably not going to like this, or here's what I'm seeing, you're really going to enjoy this?
Well, I think buyers want to buy a system, not a personality. Buyers are evaluating leadership maturity even if they don't recognize it or say anything about it. A builder, for example, they're going to grow through effort and control. They're kind of a mid-level leader, as I would identify in that one book. And their identity is closely tied to the business, and success depends heavily on that person doing their job. So that early success does come from that builder energy, but it doesn't really lend itself to being a company that you want to be buying. A leader is going to build through people and systems, and so there's going to be kind of just they're going to tend to delegate authority. They're going to create the structures beyond their own personal efforts. And just think of it in terms of the leaders grow internally. They naturally create more independence within the company. But what you're looking for if you're buying a company is somebody who's a true steward. It's a long-term value and legacy as their focus. The business becomes independent of the founder. They're making decisions in a calm, centered way without all the complexity. It's a company that's exit ready because it's being led by a steward and not a builder. So your business scales to the level of your internal capacity is a good way to see it. Does that make sense? Yeah.
It absolutely does. And for the benefit of Deep Wealth Nation, so for starters, I know it's so easy to say leader and manager interchangeably. It really isn't. It's a world of difference. And Ron, in what you're doing in your world, I love how you differentiate. Okay, perhaps it's being a steward, perhaps it's being a leader, perhaps it's being a builder. And that makes a difference. That makes a difference if I plan to grow my profits and keep the company forever. And it also makes a difference if I plan to grow my company, grow my profits, and have, in the very near future, an exit, some kind of liquidity event. So for the benefit of Deep Wealth Nation, builder, steward, leader, what does that mean for you? What would you want us to know?
Is we're in the one-on-one in person, so that's where we get down pretty deep. And I'm listening to his business strategy, what he's doing. Very successful, multi-million-dollar organization, and having fun with it, doing well. But as I'm listening to what he does, I recognize that he's not a leader, he's a manager. He's really managing the organization. And I'm suggesting to him, well, what if you weren't doing that? He's in the health area, so it's like all of his clients need to buy other health things. And so I'm suggesting that he share with me other things that he could be doing. He had a Rolodex of ideas that would make him millions more dollars every year. But the thing was, is he recognized, well, the reason I can't do that even though he'd explored many of those, was he didn't have time. Well, of course he didn't have time. He's managing the company. A leader is really somebody who is bringing out the best in everybody so that they're running the organization. A leader, this sounds counterintuitive, but I'm really, the leaders that I'm working with, I'm always supporting them and ironically putting themselves out of a job. In other words, whatever they're doing, they need to find somebody else to do that so that they are really have that bigger perspective where they can come up with new ideas, where they can really anticipate challenges ahead of time so that it doesn't throw everybody off track, so that they can come up with ideas that it's going to take the company into the next level. That's a leader. And everybody in the organization feels like they're bringing out the best in them. They feel like they're contributing and they're part of an important, valuable experience in the organization. And they become leaders. I don't care where you look in an organization, there's going to be somebody down in some division who knows more about that division than anybody else. And if they're not telling you how to improve it, if they're not looking at it in those kind of leadership responsible ways, then it's sabotaging the organization. So with more aware, conscious leadership, you see people really creating more cooperative, collaborative organizations that, I mean, there's 50 years of research, and let alone my own experience, where it increases both productivity and profits by at least 50%. I'll be honest with you, my clients oftentimes kind of laugh at that because they see far beyond that. I mean, they're doubling and more the values of their organization. They're having fun.
The F word, the famous F word, fun. Absolutely love that. And Deep Nation, I hope you're hearing what Ron is sharing, because again, it is not just gold is platinum, as I like to say here on the Deep podcast. Essentially, Ron, we're asking the founder to fire him or herself from what they're doing. And not only fire themselves, but bring on the right team of people. And we're not saying to completely abdicate and walk away, not at all.
No.
We're having the right people with the right mindset, hopefully the right breathing as well, Ron. We should be having that in the interview. Hey, let me see how you breathe under pressure here and what's going on with that. We're surrounding ourselves with the right kind of leadership, with the right kind of mindset, that it allows us to take to the world our God-given gifts of what we were meant to do in the first place, because once upon a time, we did start the business for a very specific reason. We later got bogged down as the business grew, perhaps intentionally, perhaps unintentionally, usually both. And now we find ourselves in a completely different situation. And what I find fascinating with your methodology here with your system, Ron, you start with being in the present moment, starting with the breath. And before we even move on to, well, let's talk about growth. Let's talk about profits. Let's talk about KPIs as well. Hey, Jeffrey, not so fast. Because I know in your training program, it's all about, okay, let's get the breath down. Now, Jeffrey, let's talk about what your inspired life looks like. And there is a definite methodology here of how you're doing this. So we go from breath. Again, inspired life, for most people, you may tell me, Jeffrey, actually, that's not the case. For me, when I think of inspired life, business perhaps is part of it. It may not be. There's a whole lot more besides the business that's going on with that. So why don't you share with Deep Nation the inspired life, where that's coming from, what that's all about, why that's important in this specific order?
I think creating your inspired life is what your life's about. Why do anything less? And I mean, I frequently ask people, well, what's your highest intention? And it's usually a personal, I want to make more money, or I want to be a better parent, or whatever variation of that is. And it's like, well, that's great. It really is. But that's coming from a very small focus in terms of the bigger picture of who you are, what you're capable of doing in your life. I mean, I watch within 2 months of just that foundational entry program, I watch them at the end of that, I go, so what's your highest intention? And it's always about other. It's always about more than just themselves. And the beauty of that is if you're just part of a bigger picture, then all the challenges, all the little stumbling blocks, literally is a euphemism, those stumbling blocks literally become stepping stones. I mean, because you're focused on where you're going, not just being at the effect of over effort or a bad day or all the little things that go on in life. And so it's really a matter of, it literally takes 2 months to create the foundation that we need to build the life that we're capable of building. It takes 2 months to really clean up the clutter and learn to be more present and conscious. And it takes about 9 months to neurologically rewire you so that you're capable in accessing the best of who and what you are. And then the sky's the limit, because your highest intention then becomes even more about what is your highest or greatest aspiration. Highest intention is kind of what you're capable of creating now with who you are. Your highest aspiration, you have to look at, well, who do I need to become to create that, to do that? And so your life becomes, as it should be, about evolving and growing rather than being stuck in a comfort zone that's going to end up killing you. Yeah, I mean, people let fear run their life, run their organizations, run everything, their decision making. And that fear, unfortunately, is really old fear that is easily resolved and taken care of so you can move forward and then create from a place of passion and excitement. That's creating your inspired life. When you become this whole, confident, authentic human being who loves and accepts themselves, what you want, what you're moving towards in your life. And that allows you to continue to access more and more of who you are. Well, I'm just saying, at my age, I mean, people ask me, I'm out playing golf with the guys, I'm 78 and be 79 pretty quick here. And they ask, well, what about retiring? I go, well, why would I do that? I love doing what I'm doing. I get plenty of time for boating and golfing and walking with my wife in the forest and stuff. But yeah, I love what I'm doing. And all the research shows that most of us, especially for the guys, within a couple of years of retiring, they die. And I have a little brother who's 10 years younger than me. He died several years ago. He retired from a career, and 2 years later, he was gone. And that is not uncommon. If you're really looking for the best of who you are, then take care of the basics and build that foundation that you want to build your life on and go for it.
And Depot Nation, you do not have the benefit of seeing Ron as I do, as we're seeing one another on this call. And I got to tell you, he does not look anywhere near his age. And there really is something to breathing into success, being present in the moment. He looks a good 20, 30 years his junior. And I'm not joking when I'm saying that. That is the absolute truth. And Ron, when we have our vision of what we want our inspired life to be like, for myself, I didn't have that even post-accident. It took me a while to get that. Offline, I was sharing with you in the 9-step roadmap. It's actually step 10. It's right in the introduction. One of my biggest mistakes was not preparing for the post-exit life. And there's a big difference when you have that preparation, because when you do, it's, okay, I have a purpose in life, and it's not just the business. And actually, my ambition is more now than it ever has been because of that. And to what you're saying, hey, I have a long runway, God willing, ahead of me. I have plans. And yes, I can still do the boating or the golfing or all those relaxation kinds of activities, but I enjoy what I'm doing. Why would I stop that? And you're absolutely right with that. And Ron, as you're talking about that, what's going through my mind is the whole process with the Deep Wealth Operating System, whether it's about your health, whether it's about the business, an intermingling of the two, especially when it comes to the business side, though. When we have our health, we can do a whole number of unlimited things on the business side because we have the energy, we have the focus. And when you go through the 9-step roadmap for preparing your profits, whether you want to keep the company forever or you want to have an exit, what I really respect about that is coming out of it, I'm going to use the F word, we're having fun again. And it goes back to that old saying, who wins a negotiation? Well, it's the one who cares the least. And so if as a business owner, I can keep my company forever, or I can sell it tomorrow, I'm really good either way. It's not just me running the company. I have a terrific team that's in place. I'm in more of a board of director role. I'm acting as a mentor. The team's doing what they're doing. Are they better than me? Yeah, in some areas they actually are. In some areas are not. But you know what? It's more than good enough. In fact, it's great. And now I can choose how I spend my time or how I invest my time. And so I can take this offer, but it's going to be on my terms and my way. And if you don't want that, that's okay. I'm going back to a great business. That's coming from strength. And what's interesting, Ron, as we're talking about this, I've had investors, I've had private equity, I've had buyers on the phone or on the podcast, and they all share the same thing. Jeffrey, when we smell blood in the water, as they say, this is their words, not mine. When we smell blood in the water, there's two reactions. One, we're going to go in for the kill. Their words, not mine. We're going to go in for the kill. There's something going on here. I'm going to get a super discount on this particular deal. Or the other reaction is I'm simply walking away. I don't need that kind of excitement in my life. My full-time job is not running your company. I already have another full-time job. It's called my company, not your company. And so back to your point, when I'm present, when I'm in the moment, when I can be doing all the right things, my business is going to naturally follow, especially with your system. It's natural for an investor or buyer to want to have that because the business is in the right place, doing the right things. I would love your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I just help founders evolve internally so their business becomes more scalable, transferable, and valuable. That's the simple way to say it. I think that in truth, that exit readiness really starts internally long before the deal. So you don't want to wait. You want to do it now. You don't want to put off living your life until some later point. Start now. And it's a really, to me, I see so many, you asked earlier in the beginning, what's a common thing I see? And that is I see leaders who are building a life, building this structure on a sandy foundation. I mean, I've built enough homes and that type of thing that I know the foundation is crucial. If you don't have a foundation that's going to handle the structure, it's going to crumble. It's not going to work. And yet I see people building, and they've got amazing ideas and they've got some money and they're building these incredible environments, but they don't have a foundation. So they get to a certain level and all of a sudden everything starts to fall apart. So what I support them in doing is create that foundation. And if you really have this higher vision, then create a deeper foundation. If somebody comes to me and they just kind of want to live, they want to run a drugstore or a smaller business, that's fine. They don't need the foundation that somebody like the fellow that I just was talking about earlier, where he's got 5 international organizations that are worth billions of dollars. They just don't need the same foundation. So it's like, who do you want to be? What level do you want to play on? That's the question I often ask. What level of consciousness? What level of awareness? What level of success? And success defined by what's most important to you. What success do you want to have? For me, I'm 36 years into a marriage that's the most incredible experience of my entire life. I've got a body that allows me to still run and walk 18 holes with my clubs and go for walks through the woods and do pretty much anything I want to do. That's success. I went to a doctor about 6 months ago, and my wife supported me in doing that for my annual checkup, which I have every 5 years. They said, "Oh, you've got this and you've got that." And they just kept identifying all these things and referring me to 5 other doctors. And at the end of the road, I didn't have anything wrong, literally. And all the stats were as healthy as I could be, as healthy as I was 20, 30 years ago. So what is success in your life? If you want to get to a retirement and die in a couple of years or some sort of stasis that makes you feel like you've accomplished something, that's fine. Do that. I'm not criticizing that. But if you want to discover who you are and what you're capable of and live your dream, if you want to really create that inspiring life that gives you and your family and those around you meaning, and do that. And if you want to do that, then give me a call. That's what I do, is I guide people into that level of play. I help them upgrade that internal operating system so that their personal and professional life really become what they're capable of creating, what they truly want.
Well, Ron, you're clearly walking the talk, as the saying goes, on that with your health, with your outlook. And for someone in Deep Wealth Nation, a founder who is hearing us talk, and Ron, I want to be clear for Deep Wealth Nation, when you're talking about exit, it's not necessarily an exit of selling the business. You can still own the business, but time is now your own because you set this up in a way that if you choose to, you can be in the business, or if you choose not to, you don't have to actively be in the business. And I know in the Deep Wealth community, some founders, it might be just a few hours in a very profitable scaling growth business that they're putting their time into. And the rest of the time, it's their choosing of what they want to do. So exit for you, when you're using that, it's not, hey, I'm selling now and that's it, I'm out forever. It's giving you options. So if there's one thing that a founder could begin to do today, coming out of this conversation, to be more quote unquote exit ready, whatever that looks like for them, keep the business forever, go on to other things, sell part or all of the business, what would be that one thing that they can start doing?
Understand what they want. Understand what's important to them. Understand what they want the rest of their life to look like. And then be bold enough, be courageous enough to take a look at, well, what's keeping me from doing that, keeping me from being that, and take care of those things. It all comes down to that inner work. It really does. If you're willing to do that inner work, then your outer life is going to flourish. And I see it time and time again. Everybody comes to me because they want to go from here to CEO or they want to do something in business. But literally down to, I can't think of anyone that isn't the same. They start recognizing how they feel about themselves, how they feel physically, how they feel mentally. They start recognizing that how their relationship with their kids, with their significant other is changing. And they start recognizing how they feel in their work environment, how their relationships are, everybody's starting to cooperate and collaborate. They feel more comfortable. And all the stress is diminishing. If that's all you want, that's great. Do that. What I watch is people making decisions out of fear. They only see what they think they're capable of. I mean, and I tell you, it's whatever you aim towards, even if you don't get there. Like my highest aspiration is to create a more conscious and caring world. Well, I don't think I'm going to, necessarily get there in my lifetime, but it's certainly a worthwhile journey for me to enjoy while I'm here. And I watch it. I mean, sometimes I'm working with somebody who's got a couple thousand people under them in their organization, and I'm watching all of those lives be enhanced by the shift that leader is going through. So it's really quit blaming outside things. Be willing to breathe and look within yourself. Be willing to breathe and take responsibility for creating an inspiring life. And it's up to you, nobody else. It's up to you. And if you're not willing to do that, that's just because you're afraid. And I appreciate that. But boy, I can't think of anyone who started this journey who didn't start off somewhat with some trepidation, some level of fear. But within hours, they recognize, oh, the only thing I have to be afraid of is I'm going to get to know myself better. Oh, well, that's just allowing me to free myself from all the things that are holding me back. Oh, well, gee, maybe I don't have to hold myself back. Maybe I can just handle all these things now that I see how to do that and move forward in my life. And all of a sudden I can dream bigger. I can be bigger. I can open up my heart and love my wife and kids in the way that I'd like to, and that I wished I had been loved. And whatever variation of that it is, yeah, go for it.
It's amazing preparation, as we say here at Deep Wealth and in our Deep Wealth Mastery programs. Preparation, it's the gift that keeps on giving. And it's ensuring that we give the preparation a priority because the ROI is like compound interest. Once we put it in motion, it's tremendous what can come from that. Yeah. And Ron, I'm wondering, before we go into wrap-up mode, is there an important question that we haven't yet covered that you'd like to get out there for Deep Wealth Nation?
Well, I think you've done a great job, to be honest with you. I think the question should be asked by each of the members of our audience. Who do you want to be? What level do you want to play on? Make that decision. And once you recognize what level you want to play on, it's like, okay, now create the foundation so you can create that life on that, create that inspiring life that you're envisioning. Everybody sees things in their mind. Everybody sees what they'd like to be doing, who they'd like to be, what they feel like they're capable of. Well, those aren't just fantasies. Those are parts of you beckoning. Those are parts of you saying, yes, you are capable of this. Let's clean up anything that's keeping you from really living that life. Die with no regrets. If you don't love yourself, for God's sakes, be courageous enough to do that.
That is words to the wise. And speaking of words to the wise, as we do go into wrap-up mode now, it's a tradition here on the Deep Wealth Podcast. Ron, it's my privilege and honor where every guest I ask the same question. Let me set the question up for you. It's a fun one. When you think of the movie Back to the Future, you have that wonderful DeLorean car that can take you to any point in time. So Ron, it's tomorrow morning and you look outside your window. This is the fun part. Not only is the DeLorean car curbside, The door is open, waiting for you to hop on in, which you do, and you're now going to go to any point in time. Ron, as a young child, a teenager, whatever point in time it would be, what would you tell your younger self in terms of life wisdom or life lessons? Or, hey, Ron, do this, but don't do that. What would it sound like?
It would look more like me embracing that little boy. It would look like me letting him know how amazing and loved he is. It would look like giving him permission to continue to his journey with confidence that there is no such thing as failure. In the worst of times, those will turn out to be the best of times. To be honest with you, I was an incredible little kid. I look back on who I was, and other than some stuff about not feeling like I could do things good enough because of the way my dad raised me, I would leave the house and go into the woods across the street and be there all day with my friends and just have adventures and somewhere. I don't think I've ever stopped doing that. Yes, I've had challenges. I was a U.S. rowing champion, and then I went in the Marine Corps and my entire life fell apart. But then that led me into creating the perfect life that I am so grateful that I was able to open up to. I probably would have, and I'm not criticizing it, but I probably would have worked with Coldwell Banker, commercial real estate. That was an opportunity that I had. And it's like, I'm sure that would have been wonderful. And the guys that I knew that were inviting me into that were great guys. But a life of introspection, a life of personal development, a life where you get to know yourself and become yourself and create the uniqueness of who you are throughout your life. There's nothing more fulfilling than that. Nothing.
It's really words of the wise. And so with that in mind, and it's a terrific narrative that you shared with us, if you could encapsulate that into a sentence or two to your younger self, what would you be telling your younger self in regards to that? How would you be saying that?
Be you.
I love that. Be you. It's very simple, not overthought, not complicated. And Ron, isn't that the truth? How many times we want to be ourselves, we're about to put our best foot forward or say something, and yet that fear, to what you circled back earlier on, or that intimidation, or what will they think of me, or this just sounds crazy, or who am I to say that we doubt ourselves. And in the process, we're not only robbing ourselves, we're robbing those around us of the gifts that we can bring to them and the world. It's the biggest tragedy when we're not ourselves. So Deep Wealth Nation, be you. It's some terrific advice.
Within 2 months, literally, it only takes 2 months to overcome all of those things. It doesn't mean everything's taken care of, but you've got the tools, the ability, the curiosity to handle whatever comes up in your life. So, yeah, to not take those 8 weeks and explore who you truly are, it's the most transformational experience you'll ever have, and it's the most worthwhile experience that you'll ever create for yourself.
And speaking of experiences and transformation, the Deep Wealth Nation, they're hearing this. A member wants to get in touch with you. They want to go through your programs. They want to have a call with you, learn a little bit more. Where would be the best place online to reach you?
I would just go to ronstotts.com. That's my website. There's materials they can download that can help them begin that inner journey. They can explore blogs and books and programs, and there's just a tremendous amount of information there that is really all there to support people in waking up and becoming themselves, inspire them.
And Deep Wealth Nation, it doesn't get any easier because all of this is in the show notes. Go to the show notes. It's a point and click. Reach out to Ron. Have that conversation with him. Pick up one or all of his books. It will do so much to take you to the next level, not just in the business, but in your, not only your life, in your inspired life. Well, all of that said, Ron, it's official. This is a wrap. And as we love to say here at Deep Wealth, may you continue to thrive and prosper while you remain healthy and safe. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So there you have it, Deep Wealth Nation. What did you think? So with all that said, and as we wrap it up, I have another question for you. Actually, it's more of a personal favor. Did you find this episode helpful? Have you found other episodes of the Deep Wealth Podcast empowering and a game changer for your journey? And if you said yes, and I really hope you did, I have a small but really meaningful way that you can actually help us out and keep these episodes coming to you. Are you ready for it? The dramatic pause. I'll just wait a moment. Drum roll, please. Subscribe. Please subscribe to the Deep Wealth Podcast on your favorite podcast channel. When you subscribe to the Deep Wealth Podcast, you're saving yourself time. Every episode automatically comes to you. And I want you to know that we meticulously craft every one of our episodes to have impactful strategies, stories, expert insights that are designed to help you grow your profits, increase the value of your business, and yes, even optimize your post-exit life and your life right now, whatever you want that to look like. And every time you subscribe and a fellow entrepreneur subscribe, it's a testament to how together, yes, we are changing the social fabric of society. One business owner at a time, one liquidity event at a time. So don't let the momentum stop here. Subscribe now on your favorite podcast channel. You'll never miss an episode. You'll be the first to hear from the top industry leaders, the innovators, the disruptors that are really changing and shaping the business world. And maybe you're commuting, maybe you're at the gym, maybe you're taking a well-deserved break that we spoke all about on this episode. The Deep Wealth Podcast, it's your reliable source for the next big idea that could literally revolutionize your business. So once again, please hit that subscribe button, stay connected, inspired, and ahead of the curve. And again, your next big breakthrough moment, it might just be one episode away. Maybe it was even this episode. So all that said, thank you so much for listening. And remember, your wealth isn't just about the money in the bank. It's about the depth of your journey and the impact that you're creating. So let's continue this journey together. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for listening to this episode. And as we love to say here at Deep Wealth, may you continue to thrive and prosper while you remain healthy and safe. Thank you so much. God bless.